Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see a full house of really live people instead of just heads on the screen. So, welcome. I'm Karen Roberson. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, Pasadena area right now. Thank you. And I have a couple of things I wanted to mention. One is, did you all feel the earthquake this morning? Woke us up and got here on time. Okay. The other issue is I wanted to make sure that you were aware that there are two important things I want you to know about for this weekend. Starting September 15th begins Latino Heritage Month. And so I think it's really important for us to recognize our Latin, Hispanic brothers and sisters because they contribute a lot to this community. Yay! There are many activities going on in the city of Pasadena. I don't know about the other cities in our area, but I'm sure that there are things in every city to recognize our Latin brothers and sisters. I also wanted to mention to you that we offer these pros and cons and these meetings free. Because we really want to make sure that we honor our mission, which is to have educated voters, not just registered voters. So we register, we educate, and we try to get out the vote as, in various ways. So we really appreciate you coming, and we do need to defray some expenses, the refreshments, so there are donation baskets on the tables, not those tables, but the refreshment table, so that you can help us support good food. So thank you. Yes, Marilyn. Oh yes, Marilyn. Marilyn is our development chair, and she brought today some of the items left over from the ice cream social that are still open for bid, right? Five items. There are 5 items still available. So if you all are interested, sign up for the auction. The other thing I want to do is congratulate Marilyn and her committee for a wonderful ice cream social on Sunday. It was great. And Joe has sent a preliminary report. It's not the end financial report, but it looks like we've made close to about $12,000. So that's really good. That will help defray our expenses. Because just like everybody else, the cost of everything is going up, our supplies are going up, all of that. So welcome, and I don't want to take a lot of time because we have some very important things to speak about. So at this point, I want to introduce I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. If you would, please silence your phones. I have to silence mine too when I get back to the table. And the restrooms are through this chair. I'm going to learn this stuff as I go. So, housekeeping items. Right now, I'd like to introduce Robbie Davis, who chairs our Pros and Cons Committee, or is the committee, I think. No. And to speak. Robbie's going to speak from the table. So you need a mic.
I've got one.
She has one.
Okay, is this? Oh, good, it's working. Okay, I apologize. I have a bad hip. So anyway, welcome everybody. Today we're going to cover the 6 City of Pasadena measures and 2 PUSD measures. And as our president said, our basic goal is to educate people, and at least the pros and cons is to educate people and get you ready to vote on these issues. The League is a political organization, but we never support or oppose candidates or parties. Sometimes we do take positions on some of the measures. I don't think at this point we have taken a position on any of these city measures. But if we had, I would not be able to talk about that. This is strictly giving both sides unbiased. So anyway, we're going to talk again about the 6 city measures and the 2 PUSD measures. We'll be talking about the details of each measure, what the fiscal effects will be, and the arguments for and against. And I just want to point out that these are not the League's arguments. These are arguments that have been put forth by the supporters and the opponents, and we try and use their wording as much as possible. So we don't even try to verify whether their statements are true. We just tell you what they say, and you can make up your own mind. Yes.
Are these for taking notes?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, on your tables should be kind of little cheat sheets. There's something on each one of the measures that you can take notes, because our pros and cons document is not available yet. So if there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and start with Pasadena Measure PA. Yeah, and there will be an opportunity if you want to ask a question after each one. Probably not huge discussion, but if people have a couple questions, that'll be good. Yes.
Excuse me, when do you think the pros and cons pamphlet will be ready, or analysis will be ready?
The one that the county is putting out, I hope, will be ready next week, but it will not include the Pasadena measures. It'll be just the state measures and the LA County measures. So yeah, next week. Okay, so to start off, before I even start into Measure PA, I want to talk a little bit about the Pasadena Charter Study Task Force, because 4 of these measures that are on the ballot came from that task force. And so this was an 11-member committee that was created in 2023, and that was to make recommendations for potential amendments to the city charter, and that's Pasadena's constitution, basically. And 1 member was nominated from each of the 7 council districts. There was 1 nominated by the mayor, and then there was 1 nominated at large, and then there were 2 additional members that were chosen from a pool of people that just applied to be on the committee. So the task force met monthly from December 2023 until this past May, and they made their final report to the city council in June, and then the council deliberated on the task force's recommendations and in June and July, and then they made a final decision on which ones would be on the ballot. And so the result are measures PA, PB, PC, and PF. So those were done from the task force. There are 2 more Pasadena measures, PL and PR, but they were not part of the task force's recommendations. So we will start with Measure PA. And Measure PA is an amendment to the Pasadena City Charter, and it requires just a simple majority, 50% plus 1 vote, and it changes the process for filling a city council vacancy. And it also changes the rules about campaign finance contribution limits. So the background on this is that the current rules for replacing a city council member, a vacancy, they allow a candidate to be chosen by lot if the city council doesn't appoint somebody within 75 days. And also, currently, any person that seeks a city council position have to be a resident of that district for 180 days. And then the second part about campaign finance is that the city council recently passed an ordinance that limits campaign contributions to $1,000 per person per election for city council and $2,500 per person per election for mayor. And the limit was previously $5,500 per person, and that was the default under state law. So the proposal for Proposition Measure PA, it requires a special election if to fill a city council vacancy if 2 or more years remain on an unexpired term, or if the city council fails to, within 75 days of the vacancy, to appoint somebody to fill the unexpired term. So there's no more drawing by lot. It's either the council appoints somebody in a required time or we have an election. Instead of the 180 days residency requirement, it's now 30 days. And also PA would restrict the city council's ability to amend those campaign contribution limits to once every 2 election cycles. So they would have to stay as they are, and then 2 election cycles, and then if the city council decides they want to change them, they could do that. So the fiscal implications, how does it affect us with regards to money? The only fiscal effect might be that there might have to be a special election if the city council fails to appoint somebody to fill an unexpired term within the 75 days that they're supposed to do that. So who are the supporters? The supporters are several members of the Pasadena City Council and also a former member of the City Council, Margaret McAustin. And the supporters say that these charter changes will increase accountability on the City Council and on elected officials. And these charter changes will move more power back to the voters from City Hall. And just to let you know that both sides are asked to submit arguments. The opponents, nobody submitted an argument against this. So the question is, should the city charter be amended to change the process by which city council vacancies are filled? And also how often campaign contribution limits can be changed? So yes, vote means that you think this is good, and no vote means you don't. So, any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, yes. So there's a microphone coming.
What is the current residency requirements for filling a vacancy? The
current residence requirement is 180 days. And this would be changing it to 30.
It applies to renters as well as homeowners?
Yes, yes. The question was, does this...
Renters as well as homeowners?
As renters as well as homeowners, yes.
Hi, let me just introduce myself. I'm Ken Chalkins. I was actually the chair of the task force. So, and I'm here for a number of reasons, but let me just clarify something. The task force recommended 180 days as residency. The city council chose 30. Currently, there is no, it's like, I think it's 24 hours. The people can sign up the day of. So there really isn't a residency requirement. But the reason you have the 180 days is because that's what we recommended.
Okay, thank you.
So,
This was very controversial. The 180 days, I believe, was struck because of court decisions, and that's why we have 30 days. But there was a real fight about whether the person who was eventually appointed had enough time in residency, and people got all up in arms and made presentations to the task force.
Thank you for that.
Hi. I think that the difference between 30 and 180 is vast. And I mean, if it said 90, I would think, yeah, that sounds reasonable. 30 sounds way too short to me.
Okay, well, we have to give both sides, and so I know we can't do advocacy here, so.
Right, and I think the point was there was no official opposal statement published
Correct,
anywhere, right?
that's correct.
But if you're voting for it, you're voting for 30 days, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Okay.
And there's somebody.
Let's
one
move
more.
on.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize it should be so hard.
So, okay, so if this is turned down, if this is no, then what is the requirement? It doesn't, there's no requirement? It could be 24 hours? So this is the first time that we're putting a limitation of 30 days, which I think is very short. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So our next measure is Measure PB, and Susan Sosin is going to do that. And she's going to do it from the podium.
I'm totally new at this, so please be kind. Okay, Pasadena Measure PB. What kind of measure is it? It's an amendment to the Pasadena City Charter, and like the last measure, the passage requires 50% plus one vote. What is the subject? The subject would change the process for filling a vacancy in the office of mayor. What is the background? The current procedure for filling a vacancy in the office of mayor is that the vice mayor assumes the duty of the office of mayor until the office is filled at the next general municipal election. The vice mayor is chosen on a rotating basis at an organizational meeting of the city council held every 2 years in December, with consideration given to seniority. Okay, so what is the proposal? The city council at an organizational meeting every December instead of every 2 years will be every December will elect a vice mayor. In the event of a vacancy in the office of the mayor, the city council will select an acting mayor or mayor pro tem from the remaining members of the council. The acting mayor will then assume the duties of the office of mayor or until the office is filled at the next general municipal election and will retain his or her council seat in the interim. While an acting mayor is serving, any action of the city council must be passed by 4 votes instead of 5. Are there any fiscal implications? No. Who were the supporters and what do they say? Supporters include several members of the city council and former council member Margaret McAustin. They say the purposeful selection of a council member to serve as acting mayor is a common sense approach to filling an important position on an interim basis. Measure PB will increase accountability on the city council. Who are the opponents and what do they say? No arguments of opposition were submitted. What is the question? Should the city charter be amended to change the process by which a mayoral vacancy is filled? A yes vote means that you want these changes, and no vote means that you do not. Okay.
Any questions? Oh, woohoo.
Oh, there is.
Can you explain in more detail the difference between a vacancy and the vice mayor? The vice mayor and the, what is the other position?
The mayor pro tem.
Mayor, yeah.
Ken, or you want to speak to that?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Great job, by the way. You represented it exactly right. So first, we're not going to use, I don't think they're going to use the word mayor pro tem because it was too archaic kind of. Here's the difference. Right now, if there's a temporary, if Marlene is the mayor and she goes off on a business trip, the acting mayor or the vice mayor cuts the ribbon, sets the agenda, does everything. If Marlene gets selected to go work in the White House and she's leaving the city of Pasadena for a period of time, extended period of time, that's when you would trigger an acting mayor. So there's no time period, but one is a temporary and the other is a more permanent. That's the way to think about it. And we needed a way to get a new mayor rather than just by chance of rotation, whoever the vice mayor is that could be for 2 or 3 years, you have somebody as, and that didn't work, so they needed a method to do that.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Measure PC, and that's Jean Boonagel.
Okay, Measure PC is about term limits for the Pasadena mayor and city council members. It's a city charter amendment, and so it also requires the 50% plus one vote. So the background is that there are currently not term limits for city council or mayor. In California, 31% of the cities have term limits, and several of them are local cities who were looked at before this measure was proposed. So the proposals would impose the following term limits. The city council members and the mayor could serve no more than 3 consecutive 4-year terms. A partial term of 2 years, or I'm going to say under 2 years, would not count. That's, if it's more than 2 years, it counts as your consecutive. There has to be a 4-year hiatus after those 3 consecutive terms before you can try again, and then you get a chance at 2 more. And nobody could serve more than 5 terms. The effective date for this would be 2026 election cycle, because it affects candidates who are in office after January 1st, 2025. The effective date for 2026 would be districts 3, 5, and 7, and for the mayor and districts 1, 2, 4, and 6, they would be, the term limits would be in effect starting in 2028. There are no fiscal implications stated. The supporters say that this approach balances the need to maintain institutional knowledge while injecting opportunities for fresh perspectives and more diversity. And the term limits make Pasadena elections more competitive and reduce the power of incumbency. Opponents are 2 of them. The elected officials in areas with term limits would spend less time keeping in touch with their constituents. And also, term limits could give more influence to the bureaucrats and civil servants at the expense of the legislators. So what is the question? It is, should the city charter be amended to institute term limits for the offices of Pasadena City Council and Mayor? A yes vote means you want this change, and a no vote means you do not.
Any questions?
That's it.
Term limits? A term is 4 years.
He's heard this before. If the best candidate is the person that's already run for
Three consecutive terms, and this person, this is not.
I'm sorry, what's your question?
And, okay, so you have,
Stand up then.
you have an incumbent that's, a person that's running for office has served 3 terms. So really, technically, they can't run again. They have somebody that decides to run against them, or I'm not even sure they can be on the ballot, so I'm not sure. They're running, two people that have done nothing are now running, okay, given the opportunity to run. But what if they're not really, as, the best candidate?
That's
That's the case
the
in
question.
all elections,
That's the-
and,
yeah.
right. And
That's
that's
the
up to
question.
the voters to decide.
That's the question about term limits in general. So, yeah. Somebody, there's someone back there.
Okay. So, my question is, the councilmen that are right now, if somebody happens to know, which are the ones that have been there for the longest? Like, Gene Masuda, how long has he been there? 20 years. 20 years? And then Steve Madison? 20 years? Okay, that's what I wanted to know, just so we keep it relevant in regards to how long people have been there and really create advocacy in regards to the change of population. And 20 years is that's a grown child in college.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to Measure PF, and Hannah McLaren is going to present that.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about a really arcane piece of city charter issues. And this, we need you to pay serious attention to this. If you have any relatives who are retired Pasadena Police Force or Pasadena Fire Department personnel, because this greatly affects them. If you don't have that, then you went with your honor by passing this, by addressing this issue. It's the amendment is the representation of the Pasadena Fire and Police Retirement System Board. And there's a criteria for it that they're having a great deal of difficulty addressing because of the lack of people who have retired and are able to serve. So this is going to open up the option of having access for other people to volunteer who have been police or firemen and are part of the retirement system that they have. The background for this is that the Pasadena Fire and Police Retirement System Board oversees retirement benefits for the city's fire and police personnel. The city charter requires currently that the board be made up of one fire and one police representative from the retirement system, a city council member, and 2 community members. The Pasadena Fire and Police Retirement System has been closed to new members since 1977. The retirees currently are now covered by CalPERS. In recent years, the board has had trouble finding and retaining fire and police representatives due to the growing age of the retirement system's member. The average age currently is 81. The potential lack of representation can result in an inability to reach a required quorum to conduct board business, especially when it comes to hearings on disability retirement and for fire and police personnel. This proposal would expand the pool of individuals that could represent the retirement system to the board. If no one from the Pasadena retirement system is willing or able to serve, a candidate may be chosen from any individual that retired from the Pasadena Fire or Police Department without regard to membership in the Pasadena system. So this really facilitates in an optional way the ability of our first responders to retire safely. There's no physical impact due to the proposed changes. There are supporters, several supporters, and they collectively say the yes vote ensures continued good governance and a quorum of the retirement board being maintained. And a yes vote provides greater flexibility to ensure there are always fire and police representatives on the retirement board. So there's no opposition statements presented. And thus endeth. I'm so impressed with what the committee must have had a fantastic time going through.
I had nothing to do with this one.
No, but it's just such an amazing array of thoughtful charter members that I'm very impressed to do this.
The one question I have is, does this create an issue of conflict of interest?
How so?
How so? If you have retired police and fire on the board developing new guidelines for retirement, does it affect existing fire and police?
Well, I don't know if they were on the charter board to do this. No, they weren't. This was just, I'm assuming that the charter board, all 11 people sat down and went through all the charters and go, oh, wait a minute, let's redo, this is a problem, da, 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 da. And out of that came these 6 charter pieces, I'm guessing.
Sorry, let me just explain. This issue was not part of the charter task force. This issue was put on by the city council. The charter task force only did the electoral, the mayor, the vice mayor, the campaign contribution, the term limits and all that. This one was put on by separately.
My mistake, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
They are charter changes, but this one is not something we considered.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other, Michelle?
I think the conflict of interest is the existing system, because if you've got to have active members or somebody who's actively retired, and they in turn are going to vote on policies related to retirement for people who exist and themselves. So it seems to me the conflict is with the existing system. Am I wrong?
I'm not sure, but they don't say anything. It talks about the current membership that is required, the various groups. There are people from, where were we? One fire, one police representative from the retirement system, a city council member, that's one outside person, and 2 community members. So there are 5 apparently that are required on this board, but they can't, because of the requirement that they come from this, where are we? The retirement system.
But
they can't get them, so they want to move. It's not a requirement for those people to come from the system, because there's very few of them right now. And because there are very few, they're unable to have a quorum, so they can't do any business.
And I think, too, that because there are only 2, there's a 5-member board, and there's only 2 people that represent the fire and police, so there's not a majority. So they wouldn't, yes, they are voting on their own benefits, but they are not the majority on the committee, so.
I have a question. Is the retirement system that is the case under this charter change a closed system where no one else is coming into it?
Yes.
And all law enforcement officers that are hired since that system was closed are in a completely different system, but the members who still belong are not interested in serving because maybe due to age or some other thing, because there are just no more people going into that system, but they need a law enforcement kind of understanding of retirement needs for law enforcement personnel. So this is a recruitment problem that they're trying to solve.
They're currently most of them are in CalPERS for their retirement program.
She's absolutely correct. I'm Falante Riddle, and I am a retirees CalPERS. And the individuals that are on there retired with my father-in-law from 1974. And so that's some of the issues. So in my assessment, it needs to be open for other retirees from the other system to come in, just to give context on some of the issues for police and fire, because if you're not from that profession, some of the times you don't understand some of the impact to those employees. And that's the reason this is being brought to the table.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Hannah's going to do the next one, but before she does, we have 2 bond measures on this ballot, local bond measures, and so I wanted to do a little, just a little bit
about bonds. The bonds on this ballot, they're general obligation bonds, and bonds are kind of a form of long-term borrowing that local governments use to fund infrastructure projects like schools or roads or fire stations. The bonds are sold to investors, and then they get repaid with interest, and usually over 30 years. So the revenue to repay local bonds comes from property taxes. So it generally costs about double the amount of the original bonds to repay them over 30 years with interest. And bond money cannot be used for things like salaries or government operating costs. Bonds can only be used for what are called capital projects. So Proposition 13, which we passed in 1978, originally required a 2/3 majority for all bond measures to pass. In 2000, we passed Prop 39, and that changed the requirement to 55% for local school bonds. And so this would apply to the PSD Measure R that we'll be talking about in a little bit. But Measure PL, which is on this ballot, and which we're going to talk about next, is also a bond measure. And if it's passed, the proceeds would go to fund the restoration of the Central Library. And it currently requires a 2/3 majority. But we also have Proposition 5, which is a state ballot measure. If Proposition 5 passes, then Measure PL could pass with only 55% of the vote. So it's kind of complicated. And bonds, arguments against bonds generally focus on a couple of things. They focus on the increase in property taxes that are required to repay the bonds. And they also talk about the arguments against the increase in bonded debt that would be incurred by the government that sells the bonds. So those are generally the two arguments that are put up against bonds. So without further ado, I'll have Hannah come up and talk about Proposition or Measure PL. I'm sure all of you are aware of what's happened to our Central Library, and that it has been closed for good reason. It turned out that there was an issue of earthquake damage and other aspects of the library where it needed to be seriously renovated and redone. And this has gone on for a couple of years. The building itself is on the National Historical Register for Historic Places, and it was the first structure built in the Pasadena Civic Center, along with Pasadena City Hall and the Civic Auditorium, and is a cornerstone to the community's architectural and cultural heritage. The library was closed in 2021. This is a bond measure, and what it does is tied to as Robbie said, is tied to the results on the Proposition 5. If that passes, then the percentage of voter approval is changed. It would pass at 55% of the vote. Currently, it would be at required 2/3 vote of passage. And so just to be aware of what that would take. It's a bond to fund this earthquake retrofitting and other updates. And the number of updates are really significant, as it would be in any old building. It would be complete earthquake retrofit and seismic repairs. It would redo current fire safety regulations, upgrade fire safety systems, repair the leaking roof, remove asbestos mold and lead paint, fix the mechanical systems, update outdated technology, open large gathering spaces for events and programming, and provide open and equal access to critical information, computers, and Wi-Fi. In general, this would be a general obligation bond of $195 million. This would be issued by the city, The annual debt service would be approximately $12 million, with an estimated highest levy amount of $28.90 per $100,000 over the 30-year period of this bond. The finance director of the city would file a report at least once a year showing the amount of funds collected and expended and the status of the project. The proceeds from the sales of the bonds may be only used for the earthquake retrofit, repair, and upgrade of the library, and not for any other purpose. Oh, just we can give you another further more information about the fiscal implications. If your property, and this would be these are Pasadena people. This is not Altadena or any of the other areas that were encompassed. This is just focused on Pasadena property. If your property is assessed at $500,000, you would pay around an additional $100 in property tax each year for 30 years. So you can take it, that just gives you the financial information about it. The supporters, and there are some supporters, of course, include the mayor, council members Steve Madison, Gene Mitsua, and Justin Jones, and they say, in a recent survey, 95% of Pasadena said the Central Library is an important community asset, offering literacy programs and allowing disadvantaged residents free access to books and the internet. Delay will make the project more costly and increase the chance that the Central Library could collapse in a future earthquake. The Central Library is the cornerstone of Pasadena's architectural, cultural, and intellectual heritage. And the opponents, and what do they say? The opponents include affordable housing advocates, Sonia Bernadette, Andrew Good, Mar Lee, and Bert Newton, and they say, the costs for the Measure PL are excessive. Less costly alternatives and other funding sources have not been fully explored. Pasadena currently has over $2 billion in other unfunded capital costs for items such as Rose Bowl repairs, the 710 Stub project, water and sewer main replacements, and street repairs. The Central Library may no longer be necessary since we seem to be managing fine with 8 branch libraries. So the question is, should the city of Pasadena issue $195 million in bonds to earthquake fund retrofitting and upgrade to the Pasadena Central Library? A yes vote means you want these bonds to be issued. A no vote means you do not. So is there any questions?
Since I have ownership of the mic for the moment, I am going to make the first question and then pass the mic around. Was there any discussion at all of establishing a citizens oversight commission to review and have oversight on expenditures under this bond measure? Does anybody know? Frequently, when you have a large bond funding like that, you also have an oversight commission.
And now I'm switching hats because I'm the campaign coordinator for this.
Don't forget.
But I'm not. This is not advocacy at all. My understanding is no, not yet. But that could be done by the city council at any time. That's not part of the measure is to create that oversight committee.
This is just a simple question. What is Proposition 5? I mean, it just relates to how much is needed to pass it.
This is a state proposition. It's coming from California State, it's Proposition 5, and that.
What does it cover?
It says that local bond measures for infrastructure projects can pass with 55, not just libraries, but other infrastructure projects.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. Currently, it's 2/3.
Right.
Okay.
I think one of the things you need to consider when you think about voting for this issue is the earthquake in South Pasadena put several cracks in the walls of the library that's closed. another earthquake may cause it to collapse. I think you need to seriously consider this. The other issue is that the main library provides services for the entire city. Many people need the library to get those kinds of services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I'm not a property owner, so I don't know about how bonds are affecting people who do not own property.
They do not. It's only the property owners.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting too.
It's the landlord would be the.
Okay.
The person who actually pays it would be the landlord, you're right, but landlords might choose to pass it on. So tenant.
Because we have rent control.
No.
I'll try this again. We passed Measure L, I think it was 2 years ago, that supports libraries. I think I've read that it will be affected if we don't have a central library, which means then all the branch libraries are affected. So we're not talking about just really the central library. Yes, that's what the money goes for. But if we lose the ability to have the Measure L funds, that's going to affect all the branch libraries. So you might consider that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So it's true that a bond is paid by the property owner if it's a housing rental situation, although that direct cost isn't passed on to a tenant. Every single cost that a property owner incurs is eventually considered when they're considering a rent increase. So even with rent control, not every property owner does the maximum rent increase every year. Mm-hmm. But if they're getting bonds that they have to pay on, that would influence their decision on what level of increase to pass along to the tenants.
Okay, thank you.
It's an economic thing.
Thank you.
Michelle.
This takes us back to the state propositions on rent control and whether rent control, if it's changed, would be at a flat level, or whether if you lose a tenant, you can raise the rent without having any kind of control by either the city or the state. So it may be that although the landlords are impacted by this, they can pass it on to the tenants once the vacancy becomes available. So at some point, we need to discuss 34, state propositions 34 and 33.
Okay, and we'll do that next month.
Yeah, if this is interesting and important to you, come back here on Thursday, October 10, and we will do it for the state ballot measures. So we hope to see everybody back on October 10.
A clarification, please. Did you say that there will be an increase of $28.90, say $30, for every 100,000 in property evaluation?
I think
that's what they're talking about in this.
That's the maximum. They said the average is about $20.
Oh.
So again, if you have a property that's assessed at $500,000, you would pay an extra $100 a year in property tax.
Over the assessed valuation.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You're still running on your old valuation.
On the back table, I have my outside voice.
On the back table, I'll have a frequently asked questions regarding yes or no on PL, just so you can have clarification.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no more on PL, I'm going to do the last, the last three. The next one is Measure PR. This is a Pasadena measure. It's an amendment to the city charter, and it requires, again, a simple majority, and it has to do with changes to the Fair and Equitable Housing Charter Amendment. So we passed this measure in 2022. It was Measure H, and it's called the Fair and Equitable Housing Charter Amendment, and it became Article 18 in the city charter. And it included provisions that established rent control in Pasadena and limited rent increases to 75% of the consumer price increase. It established an 11-member rental housing board. It limited evictions to just cause, and it required landlords to pay relocation assistance in certain situations. So after Measure H was passed, the LA Superior Court ruled that some parts of the measure conflicted with state law, and so some of these conflicting parts were removed, but then there are still some areas that need what they call technical adjustments to comply with the court's decision. So accordingly, this year, the Rental Housing Board recommended 19 changes to Article 18, and 6 were eventually put onto the ballot by the Pasadena City Council, and that's Measure PR. And the proposed changes are meant to clarify legal language, address regulatory ambiguities, align with other city department practices, and reduce Pasadena's administrative burdens and financial costs and legal liabilities. So the changes that are proposed by Measure PR are requiring landlords to give 120 days notice when permanently removing a unit from the rental market instead of Article 18's current 180 days. It creates a partial exemption from rent control for units that are leased to government-subsidized tenants. It establishes an alternative process for removing a member of the Rental Housing Board. It changes the timeline for disbursement of some of the relocation assistance payments. It changes the timeline for adoption of the interest rate on security deposits. And it changes the timeline for rental registration by landlords. So these are all just kind of technical tweaks that the Housing Board feels and the City Council feel are appropriate. There are no fiscal implications for these changes. The supporters of Measure PR include members of the Pasadena Rental Housing Board, Ryan Bell, Brandon Lamar, Diane Romero Chavez, Deborah Dunlop, and Allison Henry. And they say that Measure PR does not alter the main provisions of rent stabilization, eviction protections, or which units are covered. It's just simply a number of administrative changes. They say it was these changes were recommended by the city staff to ensure that Article 18 is consistent with the city charter and with standard policies and procedures, and they say it was approved for the ballot unanimously by the Rental Housing Board. The opponents include Professor Emerita Diane Louise Philibosian, a retired nurse and a homemaker, and a teacher and a homemaker, and they were the ones that signed the arguments against Measure PR. And they say that Measure PR hides the Rent Control Board's failure to implement a rental registry by changing the law to obscure the deadline that they missed. They say it makes it more difficult for voters to remove Rental Housing Board members by limiting the reasons for recall to rules that were written by those same board members. And they say it allows the board to continue to force property owners to pay up to $37,000 in excessive tenant relocation fees. So the question is, should the city charter be amended to change provisions of the city charter Article 18 to comply with state law and to clarify ambiguities? So a yes means you want these changes, and a no vote means you don't. Questions? I know this is... Okay. All righty then, moving right along. Now we're going to PUSD. So the last two measures are PUSD, Unified School District. First measure is PUSD measure EE. EE is a parcel tax, and it requires a 2/3 vote. And the subject is money for non-infrastructure projects in PUSD. So PUSD has ongoing financial issues, and there is also a nationwide staff shortage. The state cost of living adjustment was deemed by the PUSD board to be insufficient to allow the district to remain competitive as far as staff salaries, teacher and staff salaries. And a recent study showed that 70% of PUSD staff spend more than 30% of their income on housing. And just a reminder too, because there's going to be a bond measure, but bond measures cannot be used for non-infrastructure projects. So this is why we have this parcel tax on the ballot. So parcel tax, the measure EE would authorize PUSD to levy a $90 per year per parcel tax for 8 years. So it's time limited. It's 8 years. And so every parcel in the district, so this now includes Pasadena, Sierra Madre, Altadena, and there's a couple of other little unincorporated areas. So, so they say that this $90 a year per parcel would raise $5 million annually to fund competitive wages for teachers and staff, to hire additional counselors and mental health professionals, and also to develop more STEAM, that's science, technology, arts, math, engineering, to fund those programs and career training and college readiness programs. Charter schools would not be eligible to receive this money. And there would be annual audits and full disclosure of all spending. So that is included in the measure. So the fiscal implications, measure EE would cost each property owner within the district boundaries $90 a year for 8 years. So that's a total of $720. So the supporters say that high-quality public schools enhance our property values. They say that Measure EE offers significant taxpayer protections, including local control of all spending and full public disclosure of how the money's being spent. And they say that property owners over the age of 65 can apply for an exemption. The opponents say that the current $50 million deficit in the school board is a direct consequence of the board's inability to properly budget the district's revenue. They say that PUSD already spends 39% more per student than the average of neighboring cities. And they say you should use your tax dollars to improve public safety and libraries and not reward poor performance. So the question is, should PUSD be authorized to levy a tax of $90 per year per parcel for 8 years to fund additional district programs and services? So yes vote means you approve of this, and a no vote means you don't. Questions?
I just had 2 comments. Hello, I'm Michael Laurent. I served on the PUSD school board as an appointee for 2 years. One of the reasons we're so out of control in spending is special ed is a mandated service delivery. We have the highest proportion of special ed in the county, and it is not funded. So if you end up with folks that need a non-public school, or we have the highest foster care population, which usually is special ed. So I just want to give that, if there's an explanation of why are they, a huge portion is special ed. And the second thing, you all have been, I'm also a charter school operator, you all in the room have been very supportive to Learning Works. We're the partner with the school district on expulsions and kids that are high risk that the district can't manage. So our families aren't voters, but I just want to make sure, I wish they were over voters, but they're not, because poverty, as you can see in the research and trends, isn't that strong on that. But what I will say we miss when you don't include charters is a pretty good voter base. So just to explain that, I know we don't want to support charters, meaning the room, I'm in the middle. In general, yeah, in general, but, well, the league I think has in many ways. But just know that takes out about 10% of the voter base of people that vote.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So I heard you mention you could apply for an exemption for if you're 65 and older. Does that only apply to EE, or does that also apply to PL?
Just EE.
Okay, because thinking about that, and then I know we're going to move on to R, if you do some calculations, if an average home in Pasadena, and this is like low average, is 1.5 million, then that's maybe $300 a year for 30 years. And then
okay,
a parcel tax.
It's parcel. This is a parcel tax.
No, I know. But what I'm looking at is, because you've mentioned fiscal impacts on some of these, and I think if we're looking at it as a whole, don't we need to consider what the fiscal impact is on each of these added up for the end? And so if a home is worth 1.5 million for Measure PL, that could cost you $300 a year for 30 years with no exemption for 65 and older. And then PR, if you're a single family
okay, well,
homeowner.
we're getting into, I understand what you're saying.
I'm trying to understand so I can know how to vote on this one. No.
Okay, well, we already talked about what PL would do. This would be $90 per year, and I will talk about what Measure R would do.
I want a little clarification as to whether, because PUSD includes Altadena and areas outside of Pasadena, is it going to be on the ballot for those outlying areas?
Yes, it will be. Yeah, so it'll be on the ballot in Sierra Madre and Altadena, and I think there's a little bit of East Pasadena that's also unincorporated, so.
As far as I know, the board did not consider affordable housing alternatives for any of its students. And if you can house more students in Pasadena, the likelihood is greater that you're going to get state money to make
okay,
sure
well,
that the kids
that's
stay.
Measure R. That goes into Measure R.
No.
So,
no.
well, I think. Yes, it does.
Okay, but my point is that we actually could make some money with kids being housed in Pasadena and the rest of PUSD.
Right.
Because we wouldn't be losing them as the kids no longer can afford to stay here.
Right, and the Measure R addresses some of that. Okay, so any other questions on EE? Okay, let's go to Measure R, which is also PUSD, and this is a bond measure. And its passage only requires 55% because, again, in the year 2000, we passed Prop 39, which said that school bonds, instead of requiring 2/3, only require 55%. And so the subject of Measure R is bonds to fund expansion and upgrade of PUSD facilities. So the background on this is that many of the facilities are aging and they need major repairs, and in addition, we need to add new facilities to expand classrooms for STEAM subjects and other areas that will better prepare our students for changing workforce requirements. So the proposal is Measure R would authorize the district to issue $900 million in general obligation bonds. 600, I'm sorry. That was a typo. E. Oh, no. It is 900. It is 900. Nope, it is 900. And the money would be used to repair leaking roofs and electrical, plumbing, heating, and air conditioning systems throughout the district. It would expand classrooms for these new STEAM programs, and it would upgrade career education labs. It would construct rental housing units for teachers, staff, and low-income students. So apparently they've already selected a site. There's a elementary school that has been closed, and they have already selected that site to be the location for a new housing area that would house, again, low-income teachers, staff, and students. Charter schools would have access to Measure R. So, and these expenditures of the funds would be covered by audits, citizen oversight, and public disclosure, and the funds would make PUSD eligible for state matching funds. So the fiscal implications, again, it takes about double the amount of the original bond issue to repay them. So we have $900 million in general obligation bonds, which would cost about $1.7 billion to repay over 30 years. And this, again, the revenue would come from an increase in property taxes in all of the areas that are covered by the district. The average increase in property taxes per $100,000 of assessed value is expected to be less than $59 per year. So I just did a quick calculation. If for a property assessed at $500,000, the additional property tax would be about $300 a year. So the supporters say that Measure R will enable repairs to critical district infrastructure as well as modernize the STEAM labs for cutting-edge education. They say that Measure R money must be spent locally, and it qualifies PUSD for additional state matching funds. And they say by building below-market rental housing, PUSD will be more competitive in attracting and retaining highly qualified personnel that will live in the community. The opponents say that PUSD spends more per student than 80% of other California's districts, but still is one of the worst performing districts. They say that Measure R will cost property owners $900 million, and they say that PUSD does not deserve additional resources until it makes necessary changes to improve student performance. So the question is, should PUSD issue $900 million in general obligation bonds to fund expansion and upgrades to classrooms and general repairs to district facilities? So a yes vote means you want these bonds to be issued, and a no vote means that you don't. Question.
Quick question for background information. When was the last time PUSD had a bond on the ballot, and was it voted in?
That I can't answer. Anybody know? Someone says Measure O about 7 years ago.
Okay, good to know.
My question is about, are we aware of the schools and how many of them may need to have air conditioning or things like that due to climate? Because if they haven't had those funds, I'm hearing that so many school districts and our children are under that exact same issue, how climate has really impacted the environment in the schools for students. Does anyone know?
Does any in response to that, the majority of our schools do not have air, and those that do have window units, and you live in a house with a window unit, you know what that's like. I know that a couple of the schools, our high schools literally, took the students to the gym where they had air because it's just too hot. So there is an issue.
Okay. My question is kind of related because I'd like to know, not today, but I'd like to know how many schools are we talking about? How many kids go to the PUSD now? What do the schools need, like AC? I don't know what they did to PHS over the summer, but it looked like major stuff. And I'm a little bit leery of the accountability of the last bond measures for construction. So, you know, I'd really be interested in what the accountability is going to be on this.
Robbie, can you talk?
Oh, well.
Accountability. I believe they do have an oversight commission in the language.
They say audits, citizen oversight, and public disclosure. So that is built into the bond measure.
What about the information? How many schools, how many kids?
That unfortunately, I don't have.
I'm sure that
quick
information would be on the school district's website.
What, excuse me.
Hold on a second.
What kind of timeline has PUSD put in place for the reconstruction of these old schools? And the real question is, are they going to redistribute the kids' populations into these schools? Since you only have 13,000 students now, when these schools were built, they were built for 40,000 students. Would it be better for PUSD to start selling off schools that they are dealt with and have to redo? Or do they expect the kids' population to increase?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if that's been a consideration.
We have other questions.
I just want to clarify that charters are included in this, but not the way you think one would think. It's the property owned by the district. They included schools that the property is owned by the district. Therefore, if they want to kick them out or anything else and use that property, that it's one of the schools they could upgrade. So that's one. And the second is, I served on citizen oversight. I do think if you run into this, you're going to run into issues of accountability. There's no question. And transparency and you know, which schools were done and which are next on the list. So you can either go silent, or I'm texting President Kim Kinney. You can send them to her for clarification, and I'm sure she'd give them a straight answer.
Of what?
School board.
Of the school board.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is actually just a quick invitation on Monday, September 16th at the Pasadena Job Center from 7 to 8:30. The candidates for the school board elections are going to be there. So in case you want to ask some more questions, you can go and ask them personally what they're going to be doing if they get elected. So the Job Center on Lake, September 16th at 7.
And if you missed that, the League is moderating a candidate forum for the school board on October 7 in the city of Pasadena. It is listed on the handouts, and Karen is going to announce it at the end. So if you want to know, go to the candidate forum.
Is the League going to be discussing Proposition 33 and 34, and when will they do that?
We will do that on Thursday, October 10th.
State ballot measures back here, same time, same place, Thursday, October 10. Sign up on the website, please.
Thank you. Robbie, do you have any information on how many units we're talking about building, and whether what percentage would be for students, staff, teachers?
I don't offhand. I think I'll have to look at. There was a newspaper article about it. I think I'll see if I can try and look it up for you. Yeah.
They're only you're able to vote for the people who are in the district that you live in. Right. And there are, what, 7 districts, and there are 3 of those districts.
3 are on
are being voted on. So we certainly don't want you to go there thinking that you're going to have a voice if you're not in that district, because you won't be able to vote. But you can certainly learn an awful lot by going to these kinds of meetings. But just a clarification. So I'm in District 1 in Altadena with Kim Kenny, and she's not on the ballot. So it will not appear on my election thing. But the next just to the east of me is on the ballot in District 3. You can go online and find the district you're in.
I have a question on where it says upgrade of PUSD facilities. If I think I have it right that this does not include closed and abandoned schools.
That I do not know. Maybe they will.
Linda Vista is definitely closed and abandoned.
Okay, any more questions?
Real quick, I may have missed this, but the people that are age 65 or older, are they also exempt to this one?
No, shh. Can we have, no, the only 65 and over exemption is on EE. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, thank you very much. And
hello, everybody. We are not done yet. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Robbie, for chairing this, and thank you for all the presenters, and especially thank you for all the questions. There were things I hadn't thought of, so thank you, and I really appreciate that. Now, a couple of things. One is I want to remind, one of the things I said earlier was I had 2 things to talk about, and I forgot the second one. So I want to make sure that you know that we have an action alert regarding the John R. Lewis Voting Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. On September 15th, our Advocacy Committee wants us all to send an email to our local legislators. There's information in the voter newsletter, and there's even a suggested message that you can send. So they've made it as easy as we could think of to make sure that we get some advocacy going on the voters' right. Marilyn? I have that. I'm coming to that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. I could use help. Okay, so there was an article about the Pasadena Police Department. Chief Harris has indicated that they agree with the independent auditor's recommendation regarding how to handle police misconduct complaints. So you'll notice it in the news, I'm sure, soon, and our police practices committee might be interested in that. Okay. At this point, I want to remind you there are handouts in the back. We would welcome any donations for the food. And Joan is going to come up, but in the meantime, here are the coming events for the fall. And we keep adding things, but these are the ones. The next Blinn House one is the 10th of October. And then the civil discourse one is going to be at All Saints Episcopal Church. They've been generous enough to allow us space there. We are, with budgetary issues, Lynn House has changed their cost, their pricing, and so we're trying to find alternatives when we can so that we can keep on meeting in person. Did you have a question?
That 55 South Grant's the wrong address for Lynn. It says South.
Oh, it is. It definitely is. Please don't get lost. Thank you.
Is here. That's the next one.
And I'd like to nominate you for one of our proofreaders.
All right, here comes 55 South Grand. Sorry about that, everybody.
There you go.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
No, we're doing that one at Maxwell House.
Oh, we're doing that at Maxwell House. Okay.
After the elections. Right.
Oh, that's right. This is the Electoral College. I was still on the civil discourse.
Oh, you want to go back and talk about
No, it's okay. But I think you all might be interested in civil discourse. This was a very civil meeting today, but sometimes a little help could be used. So we want to talk about civil discourse in politics, and so that's the one that will be at All Saints. Okay? So I'd like at this point to introduce
Wait, we've got forums, candidate forums.
Oh, you've got more slides? Okay.
So this is on the 23rd, after the election. We'll have an analysis of the impact of the Electoral College and some advocacy, because the League of Women Voters...
You should have a microphone.
Sorry. The National League of Women Voters has a position to abolish the Electoral College. It has had it for many, many, many years and is making that a big priority after this election, and we will speak to that also on the 23rd. So please come.
And by the way, I'd like to introduce Catherine Gavsey for those of you who are new today. Catherine is our events chair, and she knows a lot about some of these issues. I hadn't seen these slides before, so I'm a little confused. Okay, so...
and candidate forums before we go into the... Also, on the table against the wall is a handout listing all the candidate forums in the area that the League will be moderating over the next 2 months. So please take it with you, check it, and look for announcements on the website. Okay?
Okay. Question?
Actually, I want to make a quick invitation. My name is Maria Castellon, and I'm a commissioner for the status of women for the city of Pasadena. And October 24th at front of City Hall at 6, we're having a domestic candle vigil. We invite all of you to please attend, if you can, again, October 24th in front of the City Hall at 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, now I'd like to introduce Joan Reebok, who is our Voter Services Chair. She wants to let you know about opportunities.
It's so good to see you all here. So there's a few, I want to tell you about all of the events we currently have scheduled. We're getting new requests every day to register voters. I know a lot of the ballot issues are on buildings aging out and firemen and policemen aging out. Well, we're addressing aging in and focusing on that for our voter registration this year. And so I want to just tell you a little bit about that and how we're expanding some of the things that are going on. We have 2 interns from PHS that have been working with us throughout the summer. Yesterday, we just had our first voter information registration day that one of the interns set up at PHS, which was very successful. We were at Welcome Week at PCC. PCC for 3 days, where we have a woman who's in charge of external affairs at PCC who is partnering with us to set up a voter information and registration there on National Voter Registration Day. Coming up on the 17th, we'll also be at LA College, which Martha is in charge of. Back here, Martha, raise your hand. Thank you. Most of you should know her, our past president. She's amazing. And there's a bunch of these stickers on the table back there that just National Voter Registration Day. Grab one, stick it on the 17th to remind everybody who sees you that if they're not registered to vote, they need to be, or to check their registration. There are cards back there. This card it's in Spanish and English, makes it really easy on the QR code to check your registration status, change address, name, register to vote, pre-register to vote if you have kids, grandkids that are not yet 18 but are 16. That can all happen with the QR code here. This one can take you right to our website where you can register to vote and get lots of information that has been talked about today, and information on the league. So that's back there. I encourage you to pick that up. This is, for anyone who doesn't know about it, is vote411.org. How many people here know about 411.org? Okay, a lot of you don't. This is a website that is sponsored by the League of Women Voters, national, state, local, county, and we have, Susan's left, she's in charge of it for the league this year, but there is information currently being posted on an ongoing basis. By the time you get your ballot, you'll be able to get onto this website and find out nonpartisan information on all of the candidates, the ballot issues, the judges, anything that's going to be on your ballot. There should be information. These cards also are back there if you need to pick one up on vote411.org. So, and you can also register to vote on that QR code as well. So I encourage you to pick those up. Yes.
Yeah, question on the 411, is that national or is it California?
It's national. You'll put in your address. It'll pop up.
I'm more concerned about the swing states and registering people there. Do we have any programs to make that happen?
You know, there are league offices everywhere. So we don't take that on, but you can contact the League of Women Voter offices in those areas, and I'm sure they would love to hear from you and encourage you to write postcards to get out the vote. Of course, if you're partisan, there's a lot of other postcards you can write, but for nonpartisan getting out the vote, contact a league office anywhere in the country, and they would love to hear from you, I'm sure. For us, wouldn't you know, I left my glasses right back there, so excuse me while I squint. So I told you we are looking for, at PCC, we will be there from 8:30 to 2:15 in the quad. We need 4 volunteers for every 2-hour shift. That's 3 shifts. There's sign-up sheets back there. I'll put this back there as well. And if you're a member, we're going to be sending out a sign-up genius for all of these, so you can watch for that. Duarte High School is from 8 to 3 on September 25th. We need 2 volunteers. On October the 3rd is East LA College again from 3:30 to 6:30. 4 volunteers. Martha, again, is coordinating that. Martha's also coordinating 2 dates to just get out the vote. Martha, do you want to talk about what you're going to do on those days?
It all depends on how many people sign up and volunteer. One of the things that we like to do is to go and read reminders at different shopping centers and advise people that, hey, you know, take the opportunity to look at your registration, register to vote, make sure that you're on the voter rolls. That's on October 5th. So it is before the voter registration deadline of October 21st. So if any of you are working to register voters, make sure you do it before October 21st. Thereafter, they can still register and vote, but they have to walk into a vote center, and the first vote center will be open October 6th. So there's this little period of time where if you want to register to vote, you have to go all the way to Norwalk to the registrar's office, and you don't want people doing that. But if you are going to be helping people register or do any of that work, anyway, that's October 5th for us to do that. Again, depending on the numbers that we get, we will then determine the best time. If it's very, very hot, it'll turn into a car caravan. So you can stay in your car. And then the next opportunity is November 2nd, and that is in the morning. We are, again, either going to walk those shopping centers and push people toward the nearest vote center so that they can go register and vote the same day, because they will only have 2 or 3 more days of opportunity at that point to vote in the November 5th election. And you know, people have lives to live, and they forget about stuff. They forget while they're running around because their hair's on fire over something else. And so our point is to remind people, hey, you know that vote by mail ballot that you left on your desk? Go get it now. So any of you who want to sign up for that, it should be fun. We have fun, I'll tell you, when we do that. It's really fantastic. So please do that. And I have a sign-up sheet. We are going to be in several of the classrooms. Some of these where we're asking for 1 or 2 people, we're actually addressing students in their classroom, and the teachers that let us into the classroom turn over their entire hour of class, or 90 minutes, whatever they have available, to actually go in there. The East LA section was eaten up by Monterey Park, which is one of our cities. It's actually in Monterey Park. And they have invited us to a forum where they're going to give information out to the students so that they can make an informed vote, and that's October 3rd. So October 17th is also another opportunity. I think Catherine had offered to go there, where we're going to do plain old voter registration. And try to sign those students up. So if you're interested, please sign up. It'll be on the table.
I am assuming we are posting these opportunities on the league website as well, no?
It's indicated on our voter, and that Joan is waiting for your email to actually tell her you're ready to work.
Right. Okay. Also, for those who are not members currently, please check our website and join. And then you can be part of all this too.
Okay, and just to wrap up, thank you. Just there's also Blair High School, which wasn't mentioned, from 10 to 12 for 2 to 3 volunteers. That's part going into the classroom. And we have, our intern is setting up more days at Muir High School and possibly some of the other high schools. I do want to say we have another intern who is starting a student league of voters at PHS at Club Rush. She got 20 people who signed up for the club. And then Penelope Abode is at PCC, the one who's working at setting up the voter information registration day on the 17th, is also starting a student league at PCC. So we're very excited about that. I do have a few of these with me. National Voter Registration Day posters, rise up and register. If anybody has a place that they feel like they would like to put that up, I have a few with me today. And so let's get out there and do it while people are fired up, right? Thank you. Yes, did you have a question?
No, I have an offer.
Yes.
The Linda Vista Library is presenting a talk on September 21st about Tommy Lasorda, Vin Scully, and bears. Okay? This is Chris Erskine. Apparently, you're probably not aware of the fact that the bears are invading this area, okay? Given the fires that are now happening in the San Bernardino Mountains, there are probably going to be some more. So come Saturday the 21st and learn about the bears.
Thank you. Also, I wanted to say, let me get one more thing I almost forgot. We're trying to find the right time and place to set up a voter registration for the Heritage Week that's coming up. And so there's so many events going on. If anybody knows specifically a good time and place for us to be there, let me know. Sorry. And you had a question?
Yeah, I have a... Is it on? Okay. So I've been registered to vote for many, many years. I'm a little concerned that my signature today might not match the signature on my voter registration card. So what do I need to be concerned about? Is there a way to change it or what?
Martha, you want to address that?
There's something called provisional ballot.
Well, I do the mail-in ballot every year, but I'm concerned that if I've been sending them in for the number of decades, are they counting my vote?
Your vote, the LA County Registrar Recorder makes every effort to count your vote. So what they will do is if you submit your vote by mail ballot and your signature bombs, the address that you have on file, they will send a notice to you to give them a new signature effect. So if you became a doctor between the time that you actually registered to vote and now you have the scribble, your opportunity to reset that. The same thing will happen if you happen to walk in person and you vote. They will let you go ahead and process. If it bombs at that point, then they'll take care of it. But they make every effort to make sure that your vote is counted. So make sure you look at your mail. Make sure you see that. But what you need to do is go to Ballot Tracks California, and register. California provides a free service that when your ballot is mailed to you, you will get a notification telling you your ballot was mailed. So if you don't see it in the mail within 7 days, you know you've got a problem. They will also say, hey, you know what? I got your ballot back. I have it. And you get notified, and then they tell you, we processed your ballot. We counted your ballot. So make sure you sign up for Ballot Tracks, okay?
TRAX?
Yes. BALLOTTRAX. Just go, California, where's my ballot? And it'll take you there to the Secretary of State of California, and you can sign up. Give them both your phone number and your email.
Tell them about LA Vote.
LAvote.gov, of course, is our LA Registrar Recorder, who's the best in the nation, right? I mean, he manages 5.6 million registered voters. By the way, there's 1 million that still have to register that are actually eligible in LA County, so let's get out there and get everybody there. But you can get so much information about that, just go there. If you're confused about where to find things, you call us. You call our office line, and we will give you the answer. We'll help you find it.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you. And thank your stars that you live in LA County, which does absolutely everything it possibly can to make sure that everybody who is eligible votes and knows how. So keep it up.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. And I hope to see you on October 10th. And in the meantime, we've got 1 million people to get registered to vote. So help us out.